Welcome to Transformation Stories.
For a long time, we have been wanting to bring real mamas onto our party and just talk to them about their stories. What have they broken free from?
Stories of healing, of fat loss, of physical freedom, spiritual freedom, just incredible breakthrough stories.
Yeah, sometimes it's not fat loss. Sometimes it's fat gain when needed. We talk to people with emotional eating disorders. I mean, you are going to be inspired. You might cry a little sometimes. You might laugh a little. But these are for your encouragement.
This is The Party with Serene
and Pearl.
Get it right, Poddy.
Welcome, Jen Felker. We are so thrilled to have you with us today and hear your story.
Yeah, we're so excited. We've met you just recently at a convention, and of course, we've been knowing about you for years, but we just fell in love because we got this personal time of connecting, and it was so great. So we heard a little bit of a backseat, pass to your story, and we really want to pull some more details out today. We're excited.
Yeah, we were like, as you were telling us your Trim Healthy story, we're like, oh my goodness, would you come on one of our parties and share it? So we are honored.
Of course, Jen is one of our amazing coaches.
Yeah.
And she's transformed not only her life, but so many women's lives. And we're so thankful, Jen. You're amazing.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me.
So I'm just going to jump in, and I would love it if you would take us back to that point, like before the turning point, before your health turned around. What were you going through at the time? Probably maybe the worst time, or just take us back there to what life used to be like before you got healthy.
I have a long history with Trim Healthy Mama because I found you in Above Ruby's magazine back in 2012. And I've had several difficult points where I've had to turn everything around and get healthy. But the very first one was, I remember I had gone through a pregnancy with hyperemesis gravidarum. It was baby number 4, and that's basically an intense sickness every day of pregnancy. And it's like having severe food poisoning every day for 9 months. And I couldn't eat solid food, and I had to get IV fluids and all of those things. I was so sick. I remember deeply missing my children, my older children during that time because I couldn't communicate well. I was so sick. And once that baby was born, I remember the first thing I just drank water. And I was so thankful to be able to drink water and keep the water. And I was so thrilled. But as soon as she was born and I felt better, I started eating everything I'd been deprived of because I had lost 30 pounds during my pregnancy.
Wow.
And I gained, I think, 50 pounds after the baby was born because I just was eating anything I could. I had felt deprived, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember that I found a family photo of myself with some of my siblings, and I didn't recognize the person in the picture. I asked one of my older kids, "Who's that?" It was kind of a picture from the side and at a distance. And they said, "That's you, Mom." And I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. I didn't recognize myself. And I had seen the advertisement for Trim Healthy Mama, and I had tried South Beach Diet, which was popular in 2012. And
Yes.
I had tried so many things. I tried P90X, which was daily, hour-long exercises. I felt like I'd tried everything. But with Trim Healthy Mama, within 4 months, I had, now looking back, I wish I'd slowed it down a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But I lost all of that weight that I gained, and I got very healthy, and I felt amazing. I had energy to run and keep up with my kids. And I was just thrilled to find something that actually worked. And then I felt like it from a cellular level. I had energy. I felt so good, and I was so thankful for it. And from that point, I had a lot more ahead of me that my health that good health would serve me well. But that was, I think, really a turning point where I didn't know what healthy food was. I
Well,
had
can I stop you there? I
discovered.
know Serene's probably got a question because we are so curious, but so does this mean that really growing up you never had maybe weight problems? Like were you that wasn't an issue until after this pregnancy?
Yes. And I had gained weight with every pregnancy. That was baby number 4. And I had always gained weight, but I didn't know how to eat. And my family is and was addicted to sugar, all of us. So
Wow.
I grew up, a six pack or more of soda every day, but I was
Whoa.
never heavy. I just
Wow.
burned it off. And I'm thankful that I didn't have more health problems than I did
Mhm.
eating that way. I'd hope we'd have ice cream every day for dessert. And it was fine. And most of my family too just would, I guess, burn it off, had quick metabolism at the time. Now that everybody's a little older, it's not quite.
Right. Because that's what happened with my husband. He was a skinny, tall teenager and then he married me and he was still skinny and tall and he would go through I don't know how many 32-ounce sodas. When he was doing construction, he'd just
Yeah.
go to the gas station and fill it up at the machine. And he got to the point where he was struggling with insulin resistance and pre-diabetes, even though he was the skinny guy that burned it up back then,
Yeah.
but his body, it was taking a toll over time. So
It's great until it isn't, I
that's
think.
right.
I think you don't know what's going on under the surface, so you're just enjoying it, and then
Yeah.
you realize the damage you're doing to your
Wow.
body at some point.
Wow.
Well, then you adopted Trim Healthy Mama, and Trim Healthy Mama like unshackles you from sugar. And you're saying you had a sugar addiction. So was that challenging at first, or?
It was very challenging, yes. And I realized something that I've tried to teach my clients since then, and so many have grasped this. Whenever you get to the point where you feel it's been a couple of weeks with no sugar, you're about to give in, that's usually the point where if you just push through those few days, it gets so much easier. But so
So,
many of us quit right there.
so tell me about your THM journey now. Like Pearl, she's unshackled from sugar, but she can still go and, on a cruise, have a slice of tiramisu or have a bite of something, of her family members that's got some sugar in it. And she can have that little taste, that little enjoyment of a morsel, but it doesn't pull her in. But we've had other people that have come to Trim Healthy Mama and it's almost like Alcoholics Anonymous. Like they can't have a drink. They can't have a slice of cake because then they're just drawn back into that struggle. Are you that way where you just like Coach KJ where you have to maintain the course. You have to stay on plan or can you have a treat from time to time and it just doesn't pull you in anymore?
That's a great question. I can have one from time to time. I do make it a point to take my healthy THM habits with me on vacation. I
Yeah.
don't leave them behind and just, make it a free for all, but I will choose very special occasions once or twice a year where
Yeah.
I'll have something I know I'll enjoy. What I think a lot of people in sugar addiction don't realize is that we don't enjoy it as much as we think we do. And
Ah.
we'll build something up in our heads that this is going to taste amazing. And it's not as good as we remember most of the time. And a lot of us feel a little bit sick afterwards. So it's not worth it in most cases. So I'll save it and maybe a couple of times a year on a truly special occasion, maybe a family member making something really special for me. I'll indulge then, but I always plan ahead. I plan the protein before and I plan the meal that I'll have after
Oh, so
anytime I'm
smart.
going to go off plan because then I'm not letting myself spiral. So as a
Yes.
former sugar addict, I think having those plans in place makes it way easier to have it be a true indulgence and just for special occasions.
I love that because you're not just, sorry, Pearl, you're not just falling off of your, mental game. You're like, okay, I'm hemming myself in with wisdom on this side and wisdom on the post side of the treat. And I love that. I love that planning
And I
ahead.
I guess like I don't plan it like that, but I never had a sugar addiction.
Right.
So I think that's so smart, Jen. But I want you to take us back too, because I'd love those. There's people listening right now watching that are struggling, right? Breaking from sugar. And you said that you get to a point where you're about to give in. If you push forward, it starts to get so much easier. But do you remember a moment like when you were at that crossroads? Like, is there a memory peg or something that was happening in your life?
Or something that your brain just says, like a line.
Well, I do remember something very specific. I had gotten to my goal with Trim Healthy Mama the first time, and I was at a Chick-fil-A and I filled up, I had a soda in my hands, and I looked down, and I remember I could start to see my stomach was coming back out. It wasn't trim like it had been for so long because I'd gotten back into sugar a little bit. And I remember looking at it and looking down and thinking, this is not serving me. This is not serving me at all. And I just threw the whole thing in the trash. And now
Wow.
I think that's probably inconsiderate because of the liquid everywhere in the trash can for the workers. But I just threw the whole thing away. And
Yeah.
there's something so empowering about that. And that's something I've had my clients do. You have to give yourself permission. If you take a bite of something that's not serving you in your season, it's not going to make you any healthier. And maybe you're just not enjoying it, but you're in the habit of having something like that. It's okay to get rid of it. It's okay to give it to somebody else who doesn't mind eating sugar or to throw it away. We have to give ourselves permission to stop ourselves. Sometimes I think we feel obligated to, well, I started this, I should finish it. I don't feel
Yeah.
any of it.
I
It's
think
not,
that's so true. And I feel like even in our houses, right? Post Christmas, post Thanksgiving, you've always said, Pearl,
Yeah.
you've had these little treats. I think on Christmas morning you guys have the real Cinnadoodle kind of cinnamon
Cinnabon.
buns. But you're like anything left over the day after Christmas, she just chucks it out.
Well, because you don't want to put, you think it's so wasteful to put something in the garbage can, but it's worse for your body to be that garbage
Yeah.
can, right? But I want to ask you this, Jen. You got to like 4 months, you got to your goal weight, and then suddenly you were going back to sodas and different things. How did you slip back? Like, did you just find yourself going back to old habits? Like, what was the mindset? What was happening with you?
well, for me, it was the scale. I realized I had an emotional tie to my scale, and I've seen this with many other trim healthy mamas too. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty common. If the scale was good, then I was giving myself permission to eat off plan because I was doing great. And if
Uh-huh.
the scale was bad, I was punishing myself and
Wow.
but not with good, delicious on-plan foods, with what you've called the dry rabbit food, just I'm so limited. I'll only let myself eat these three things. And it wasn't healthy at all.
Yeah.
But breaking free of that actually helps a lot with the sugar addiction because I had to learn that if I'm doing well, if the scale can't decide for me whether I'm going to be healthy or not, I can't let the scale make that decision.
Right.
So instead, I put systems in place and I follow habits that make me healthier every day. And it doesn't matter what the scale says. If I'm making the good choices, I'm going to be healthier and doing better. And that's why it's worthwhile.
I love that, Jennifer. And I would love to add too that, the scale can also be so deceiving too for people as they get to menopause because maybe the scale is staying the same, but they're losing so much lean body mass, replacing it with the lighter stuff, which is the fatty tissue, and they can get that skinny fat necessarily. So they may not be really in a good, healthy direction. They may not be doing well, but the scale says they're doing well. So then they follow through. I'm just going to have like a crappy whatever and not have a anchored around protein meal. And so they just further that complication because the scale doesn't always speak right, even if the number looks right.
Yeah.
True.
And it's so amazing though that and you're going to share with us other parts of your journey, but you've been a trim healthy mama now for going on 14 years, right? And isn't it a journey? Because I hear you saying, back then I was kind of ruled by the scale. I mean, I look at my own journey and think we walk into greater and greater wisdom and freedom if we just keep walking, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a great way to phrase it. I love that.
What I'm interested about your story too is you said, the first time you had a transformation on Trim Healthy was after this really difficult pregnancy. Well, tell us about some of the other times. What were some of the other health crossroads that you've had to just walk out
Yeah,
of?
what happened next?
Well, in full transparency, I have regained weight and lost it again. So the next time was with surprise baby number 5, the greatest surprise I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
But I had a trim healthy pregnancy, which was wonderful, but I gained 30 pounds, which I was
Not
okay with.
that bad.
That's
I
great.
was
Yeah, I
eating
like it.
well and I was sick. So I wasn't as sick as I was with the previous baby, but I
Mhm.
was so pleased to have a healthy baby, healthy body. I
Yeah.
ate on plan food, so I was thrilled with the whole experience. Fewer complications, and I credit that to Trim Healthy Mama Foods. It was very worth it to be eating well when I could eat, which was a lot better than the previous time. So I had to lose baby weight, but then I had 5 children. And so life was a little bit more complicated. And I had unexpectedly found myself in a difficult situation where my husband at the time and I got divorced. There were a lot of things that had come up that a wife would not want to experience and things that I had discovered. And when I was going through that, there was immense stress. And I think something that I learned through that was that I'm a very black and white person and I'm very formulaic. So I had thought, well, if I do what God commands before marriage, and if I, follow this checklist, then everything's going to turn out the way that I think it needs to turn out, and everything's going to be perfect. And I did the same thing with my health journey too. I thought, well, I'm never going to have to deal with stubborn weight or unhealthy hormones because I'm going to check all these boxes and it's all going to be the way that I think it should
Wow.
be. Not realizing that the promise that we get is not that everything's going to be perfect for us. The promise is that God will be with us through it all and work things together for our good. And
Wow.
that was something that was a hard lesson to learn. But in that immense stress, I had started losing the baby weight and then I gained some that just would not budge. I later did,
Cortisol, right? Obviously, your body
yes,
just flooded with cortisol.
Mm.
yes. And I did a Dutch test and saw that everything was off. My cortisol patterns were pretty crazy. And even though I was eating well, it just wasn't budging. And then shortly after that, I guess within a few years of that, we had a pretty crazy life circumstance where I had to go to court to keep the right to homeschool my kids. And after I was homeschooling 5 kids, I was working as a Trim Healthy Mama coach and I was
Mm.
supporting all of
Wow.
us for the first time ever. Didn't really know what I was doing, but
You
it
were
was
single
awesome.
parenting and
Mm.
Yeah.
immense stress. Wow.
It was a lot. And then, fighting to keep homeschooling them. And then shortly after the judge had affirmed that I could continue homeschooling, I was told at that point, um, calls started going into Child Protective Services
Oh.
saying I wasn't educating my children.
Oh.
And that I didn't know that at the time, but we did have a worker come to the door, and with no identification, no badge or anything, and say, I want you to let me in to speak to your children and you can stay outside. And I just said, absolutely not.
Mm.
I can't do that. And I was on the phone with an attorney and they said, you don't need to let them in. You don't have to, especially if they don't have any identification. I didn't know they don't have to carry identification. They can just go and
Wow.
say, you need to let me in. And I refused. And my kids were removed from my home because of it. And that was immensely stressful. I don't even think the word stressful
Right.
comes into
No.
play there.
Mm-mm.
Unfortunately, because it was right a few days before everything shut down due to COVID, not only were they separated from me, and I had had them most of the time prior to that, I wasn't allowed to see them for several months for the first time in their lives.
And what was the youngest baby? What was the youngest child at the time?
She was 4.
Oh,
And
well, so you'd not only have lost your marriage at this point, things you didn't know were happening, but now you have lost your children. You are alone. I cannot
It's
imagine.
no, stress is not even a word. I've got like,
No,
no, there was an intense grief that was going
mm,
on every single day. And I have to say that God's presence has never been more real to me
mm,
than it was in that time. I
mm,
had a great church community and I had friends and I had a lot of people, my family surrounding me, but I've also never been so isolated. I was in my house by myself.
mm.
And going through all of those things, it was almost shocking to me. I kept thinking, well, this will all straighten out soon. But then things would happen, like they'd come and I'd have all these boxes organized with the schoolwork the kids had completed and all of these things, and they wouldn't even look at it. They didn't even look at it once. We just had to get through the court system. And unfortunately, it took many, many months to get hearings and everything to get it all
Was it
straightened
the
out.
shutdown? Was it the shutdown of COVID?
Yes,
Oh,
oh,
yes,
so
yes,
COVID delayed
mm.
everything. So what
yes.
may have been a short experience and you would get your children back quickly turned into, hey, we're not even doing courthouse things. We're not seeing. Oh my goodness.
So it was a dark time. I think it was a very dark time, and for my kids too, and hearing them talk about it is heartbreaking. I think that
Were
I
they
had,
all together or were they separated into different homes?
they were together. Which was good. And they were together and they were with family. So it wasn't, but I still couldn't see them and I still couldn't be with them. And
Oh,
the way these cases are so complicated. There were so many things like they had warned me, the attorneys had warned me, they're going to, put more things on there than just homeschooling because they don't normally just take kids away. So some of the things on the report were that I had a broken blind in my front window and I had just moved into
yes.
the house a few weeks before. We had, something on our driveway, all these things that weren't, it was just crazy. The things that are tacked on there and the way that there's just nothing you can do. And we're going through the legal process and there's just absolutely feeling hopeless because nothing's working out, nothing's changing anything. Hearing that my children are crying and screaming for me daily. It was unbelievable. And I think that what I learned through that is just that, that promise that God makes is real, that he'll work things together for our good, even in the moment when it feels like there's no possible way. So during that experience, I lost 30 pounds from not eating. I
Okay. Yeah.
could not stomach food. I couldn't get anything down. It was all emotional, of course, but I couldn't eat. I didn't realize that that was also cortisol and that was also leading to other, very difficult things to work through as far as my
So, obviously you weren't eating regular meals. Just to sustain yourself, I can imagine you might have to snatch something here and there just to stay alive, right? This is months long. You're snatching food and barely thinking about it, cannot stomach it, no hunger. But obviously you're throwing everything. I mean, not even protein, right? Probably just whatever.
not at all. And I
Yeah.
really, it was just so emotionally
Yeah.
intense that I just really, people were trying to feed me and trying to get me to eat. And I was so focused on, I just wanted my kids back. That was all I could
Oh,
think of.
absolutely. And there's no judgment in me saying, hey, you weren't getting your
No.
protein. There's just like I cannot only imagine that you were not thinking macronutrients.
No, and if I could go back in time and
Yes.
have a bigger perspective, I would think that I wasn't doing myself any good
Mm.
by not, I mean, I could
Well, it
have.
sounds uncontrollable. It sounds like you would have thrown
It
up whatever you put in, you know?
it is possible, but I just ate small bites of what people would bring me and lost weight. So I thought maybe I was healthy on the outside, even though I was so immensely stressed and grieving on the inside. That's not what was actually going on. That's just what I thought. Okay, maybe, it's not that bad.
Mhm.
So you
But
lost your marriage fell apart. You gained weight from the stress. Your children were taken. You lost weight and so much more from the chronic stress. So it went from bad to worse.
Mm.
Oh, yes. And I lost that weight in a very short period of time. I think like 6 weeks. I just
You
lost.
probably lost a lot of muscle mass. So
Yeah.
that's your metabolism in the
I'm
tankers.
sure I
Not
did.
that you
Yeah.
cared at the time, you're just caring about your children, but that was what you were going to have to fight against next
Yeah.
time you picked up Trim Healthy Mama.
Yes. So, and I did get fully back on plan when my kids came back, which was, an amazing feeling. I think there's still grief
Mhm.
over time lost that,
Hmm.
can't get back, but
Can I
God.
ask how long were they gone in total?
It took 8 months to get to the some of the evaluations for education and everything that they had wanted us to have, and then it was another 2 months after that, I believe, to get the final court hearing. But before that, or that wasn't the final court hearing, just where they were putting the kids back in my home. But before that, it was just, they wouldn't have one kid who was having a hard time where they were at come home and then another. And I kept asking, well, if it's fine for one to come back, why can't they all come back right now? I
Yeah.
didn't really understand what was happening. Uh,
Yeah.
but so they did start coming back, and then eventually we were all together again.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
was a lengthy process. And once they're involved,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
takes a very long time. And there aren't many opportunities to prove anything because it's just a lengthy process and
And
um,
COVID made it lengthier, obviously. Yeah.
much lengthier. Yes. So that was devastating that, to be hearing, well, normally they would do this investigation and give them back quickly, but now everything's shut down. So it's going to take so much longer.
So
And
your children are back, you're back to trim healthy, but you have lost muscle mass. Your hormones are still in disarray. What happened?
the weight all came back and it brought friends. So there
Oh,
was there was a lot. And I'd started walking for stress relief. And during the COVID shutdowns, there wasn't nothing was open. So there wasn't much to do. So I would be on the phone with all these attorneys that were volunteering their time to help me because they knew this was insane and this doesn't normally happen. So I would just walk and I would walk up to 6 miles a day and
wow.
that had to stop when the kids came home, which praise the Lord they did.
Yeah.
But then the weight came back on. So I gained about 40 pounds after everything settled down and I was eating normally and not walking as much and all of that.
Mhm.
And that was just stubborn. It took about 2 years to get that off. And what really helped with that was the things that you were sharing in the podcast about prioritizing protein and prioritizing carbs. And especially, I think, with the cortisol issues I was having, not getting enough e-meals was not helping me at all. I think that was really harming me. So once I increased my
Mhm.
e-meals to two a day, sometimes more.
And can we just like for new people in the room, emails, can you just, describe that for newbies listening maybe?
Yes, those are the energizing meals. Those are the ones that I think, are so helpful for getting healthy. Those e-meals are your healthy carbs. So simple things like I would batch cook a bunch of sweet potatoes at the beginning of the week, get them in the refrigerator, and I could have one of those every day. And, with
You're
lean
like
protein.
Serene. Serene has a sweet potato pretty
Oh
much
yeah.
every day. Yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you have and you can even buy if you don't have time. And this is something that I've discovered as being a single parent for so long with all these kids. I had to figure out quick systems to stay on plan. And it isn't always home cooked everything. I would go get those Members Mark grilled chicken that only have the chicken and seasoning that was pre-cooked at Sam's Club. And I would have one of those with a sweet potato I had put in the oven. And, that's the easiest meal, I think.
Yeah.
But you can also make brown rice. There's a lot of those healthy carbs that your body needs. And sometimes you need a little bit more of them in certain seasons than you do in others.
I love it how helpful that you can be as a coach because of all the different seasons that you've had to go through. I mean, you really can relate.
Well, I'm saying you're not old enough for menopause yet, but your body almost was shut down into this stubborn high cortisol state, like many women in menopause find themselves in. Their cortisol rises because their sex hormones drop, and they have that stubborn weight too. And I love that you said carbs helped you drop.
Mm,
And how did they do that? They pulled down the cortisol.
yeah. Yeah.
He did. And I didn't, Kiora wasn't available during that weight loss process, but I did have my progesterone levels tested shortly after I had started losing weight again. And my progesterone was at postmenopausal levels, which
Wow.
didn't surprise me after everything I'd gone through. So Kiora has helped me to get healthy in that way too, where I've been able to get my progesterone back up to normal and sleep well at night and all of those things
Yay.
that stress takes
Sleeping is
out of.
everything for cortisol, right? And then I imagine you weren't sleeping when you're going through this immense
Mm,
stress.
Oh, I had severe insomnia. And I have seen a relationship in myself and many women that I work with when we're not sleeping well, we tend to hold on to
Oh, yeah.
weight. You're not able to exercise as well. We just don't have the energy. So I
right.
kept hearing that I needed to lift heavier or be, more consistent with workouts. But I kept thinking, but I'm so sleepy. I don't know if I can do it.
Right.
And so
Mm,
that helped a lot.
For sure. I was going to comment about something. Oh, yeah, you said it was a 2-year process, but I want to hear more about this because
yeah.
that is the reality when you have this stubborn state, when you have lost muscle as you did, when your hormones are jacked up. And then you come to trim healthy and you're doing it in a way to heal your endocrine system now, but it's not fast, right? And is that what you tell the woman you coach? Don't expect this overnight. It's going to take a while.
It does take time. I think, I hear from so many people, oh, Jen, I don't want to start working out because I'm going to get bulky. And I tell
Yeah.
them, I wish I could get bulky a little bit because I've been at this for a long time and there's no big Wonder Woman muscles going on here. It's just if you view, like you've said, your muscle as your metabolism, You want to be consistently building it, and that does not happen quickly. But I
Yeah.
think that building the muscle is what has the greatest impact over time, especially as we age, right? So I'm 42. And I think it's a lot harder to build muscle now than it was for me when I was younger. But it doesn't have to be intimidating. It is something that takes time. Finding out what works for you also takes time. That's
Right.
the process alone, figuring out, which carbs your body responds to well, and also
Yeah.
what fits in with your family and your lifestyle.
Mhm.
All of that takes time to figure out and develop. It's not an overnight process.
Wow.
Well, I mean, Serene, you have a question because I'm really butting in here.
No, you go for it. I
Okay.
just
Well,
enjoy my
what
questions.
did you do? I mean, you obviously realized, well, I'm going to include more carbs and veggies, for my adrenals. I've got to get lower this cortisol. But then you said you brought in strength training. You worked on your muscles because you'd lost them. What did you do? How did you start? If
Well,
you'd just been walking and now you're like, I need to build my muscles back.
I did a few programs. So I started
Yeah.
with work-ins, and then
Yes.
I got to the point where I felt like even, I wanted to try a little bit more and do slightly longer workouts, but still honor my cortisol because I
Yeah.
knew that I didn't want to be stressing my body. So I tried Carolyn Gervin,
Hmm.
and Heather Robertson is another one that I pause after a set to get
Mm.
a good long break in. And I will cap it at 35 to 40 minutes, even if the workout's not done. I had to get out of my perfectionist mindset and realize that it's
Yeah.
okay
Yeah.
to make sure I'm getting a long break in there and protecting my body while I'm
Right.
exercising.
Yeah.
But those were two that I did. They have, calendars and everything. And now that you've come out with the all the other exercise programs. I do the push programs and all of that now
Yeah.
too. But getting into the pattern of exercising, especially when I first got my kids back, I didn't want to do anything but spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I had them exercise with me. And
Right.
I had to figure out ways to fit it into my schedule so we were all together doing things and enjoying each other. But I also realized I couldn't completely neglect my health. So
Yeah.
that just 3 times a week over, a 2-year period is what really started to I think, change my body and getting that recomposition going. Prioritizing protein was another big thing that I had not done well, even in all of these years of Trim Healthy Mama.
Mhm.
I would anchor each meal with protein, but sometimes it would be just 10 to 15 grams.
Right.
I think that sudden jump, of, okay, I'm going to just buckle down. I'm doing 25 grams 4 times a
Yeah.
day. That's my priority. That also, I think, had a really big impact on my ability to build muscle and how I felt every day. And because I was overweight, I was dealing with insulin resistance, and getting that protein in, I think, really had a big impact overall.
I love your story. I just feel like it's so encouraging. So many people, they think, it's just like those self-doubt conversations you have in your head. Well, I can't really, you know, um, go to the gym because, I'm not just some 21-year-old that's not married and doesn't have children or, I'm not somebody who can, like has the time to really worry about full protein something a day, but your life, I mean, especially in the testimony you've shared, it's not a cakewalk of a life. You've got plenty of responsibilities, and if you can do it, I feel like it's just kind of like an encouragement to women out there. Okay, like all those excuses I was saying, they're just excuses, obviously, because if Jen can do it,
I
then
know.
I can do
Like,
it
that's the
too.
slogan. If Jen can do it,
Yeah.
I can do it too. I love it.
And it
It's
was just
true.
3 days a week, right? We don't have to
Just
tell
really
ourselves, well, I'm not going to do it because I don't have 7 days a week to do
And
this. Well, we're not,
she's
yeah,
capping it at
just,
35 minutes. I
yeah,
capped mine at 25.
yeah, that's just awesome.
Yeah, I think we build it up so much in our heads that we feel like we just can't be successful with it. And we have to realize, it fits into our lives. It's not something that we have to rearrange everything about
Mhm.
our kids and our family to make this work. The beautiful thing about being healthy and exercising and following the Trim Healthy way of eating is that you can accommodate it to your family. You can make it work. I firmly believe you need to have plans in place. Like I've got a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C for every meal always. So I never
Wow.
have a reason to go off plan because I've got these other things on standby. But
Mm.
it's also okay to give us ourselves permission to, okay, I didn't get to my workout today. It's not the end of the world. I have other days this week, and I'm only doing 3, so I can choose other days and make it happen.
So great.
You've been through a lot, and I think about you sitting here right now, do you consider yourself kind of like where you go, you look super healthy. We saw
You
you in
look
person.
radiant.
Do you feel like you've got to where you want to be? I mean, we're always on a journey, but do you love where you're at?
I want to build more muscle. I always
Yeah.
want to be getting healthier. So
Yeah.
that's my goal right now. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see how that's changed how I eat and how I
Yeah.
approach being healthy mama. I still feel like I have all of the knowledge and benefit of going through extremely stubborn weight, going through postpartum weight. I know how to do that and I know how to help other people do that. And now it's been a really interesting thing to see, as my hormones are changing, how my body's changing. And it feels great to have a plan for that too, from the Trim Healthy Wisdom book, have everything all laid out for this is what I need to be working on now. So I feel really good about where I'm at and also excited about where I'm going next.
Yeah, so I see that your future, and I mean, I know, like you said, our lives aren't going to be perfect, but God is going to be with us. But, I look at your life now and you are remarried to a wonderful man you told us about, and good things are restored to you too, right?
Absolutely, yes. And I think when I think of my story, and I even glossed over so much of it, but the key, I think, is just God's faithfulness. And He
Mm.
does say He will work things together for our good. And I think that applies to, the way we eat, everything. And but I think in life, looking back, I know that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to grow closer to God had I not gone through some of these
Yeah.
things. And
And you
now
wouldn't, yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. I was just thinking you wouldn't be the coach that you are today had you not learned those really hard, physical lessons. It's like, he really does turn the ashes into beauty. And you have so much to give to the world
and
because of
now
your
I
hardships.
I'm so thankful because, God talks about restoring the years that the locusts have eaten. And I think of that verse almost every day, just
Wow.
with gratitude for having my children around me and my husband and having health and having so many things that are just gifts from the Lord that I don't know that I would have appreciated those things the same way either.
Oh, that is so huge. I don't like New Year's resolutions because in the past, but I had one this year. And that was to live in gratitude, not just have a list of things I'm thankful, but to live in gratitude. And I mess up, but I'm trying to be that more and more. But when I think about your situation, and you said it's a gift to have your children around you and just a husband in the home. We take that for
Yeah.
granted. It's a gift that I've been married to my
Mhm.
husband for 31 years. It's a
Yeah.
gift. It's not something to be taken for. Well, of course I have that.
Yeah.
No, it could be removed from
Well, it's like
us.
what you said, if I tick all these boxes and do it all right, well, then I will be, everything's gonna just go as I desire. But it's not the case, right? It's not the case. And life happens to the people that tick all the boxes. And so we just to have that grateful heart, I just love that. And I just see gratefulness shining from you. You just have such
I
a
think
radiance about you, and it's not just health, it's inner. It's something
no,
coming
but
from the
but you've
inner,
been
man.
through hard stuff.
Yeah.
Do you ever have days where you find yourself not grateful and life is just hard, and then you're like, oh, hold on, what happened to me? I've got my kids back.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, well, this is nothing compared to where I've been. And, during that time, I kept thinking of that verse that, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And I kept thinking, Jesus has already said that he's overcome this. And I'm gonna get through it. He's overcome all of the trouble that we could have. And there's nothing here that, we should give up over. So having, those promises carry you through those really difficult life situations is really impactful now because I can look back and just be so grateful to have gotten through those things and now have so much to look forward to.
I have a question for you. Okay, so you've turned around some very difficult situations using Trim Healthy Mama, and there's a lot of different aspects of the plan. They're actually kind of simple, but can feel a little overwhelming at first to those that start. Was there any particular aspect of the Trim Healthy plan that was just harder for you to get a hold of than others? Like, was it separating the fuels, or was it, you know, um, changing over every 3 hours to, like, juggling them, or what was it? Or was it just um getting movement or eating breakfast? Were you a breakfast eater? Was that hard to implement? What was the one that was most difficult for you?
Breakfast is a good one because I wasn't a breakfast eater, but I actually think what it was quitting sugar in a house full of people who still ate sugar and having it around me all the time. And I do think that home should not be a place where you have to exercise constant willpower
Yeah.
and be surrounded by things that are tough. So I think the things that helped me the most with that were asking family members to put things out of my line of vision and, on different shelves, in different cabinets, things that I don't access as often, and having plenty of on-plan treats if you have a healthy dessert ready, you are so much less likely to cave into something that's not as good for you and maybe in your face at home. So that was a huge struggle for me, but getting those healthy replacements was key.
So hearing that answer, does that mean that, your family has not been totally on board? Your children, maybe your husband, that they're just doing their own thing. Like, Mom, that's your weird plan. Let us stay over here. Is that the case?
Sort of. So
Yeah.
before my husband and I got married, and he does eat sugar, before we
Yeah.
got married, my kids had called our house an ingredients household. We didn't have any purchased junk food or soda or anything like that for years and years and years. And since
Yeah.
I was making the food, it
Yeah.
was all on plan. So my
Yeah.
kids ate on plan, but then as kids get older and they start to
Yeah.
drive, my oldest is 21 now, they start bringing things home
Oh, yeah.
and they start buying their own things that aren't ideal. And I think so for our house now, our main meals, anything that I cook is on
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
I always make crossovers for the kids or a side
Yes.
dish that makes it a crossover.
Yeah.
And my husband, occasionally I include an off-plan side dish. If my
Yeah.
husband requests something, I'll make that for
Yeah.
them. I don't eat it. And it's just a matter for me now. And I wouldn't say this was at the very beginning, but for the past 10 plus years, saying I'm a trim healthy mama, I don't eat that. I have these
Yeah.
delicious foods instead has
Yeah.
served me very well. So they will get off-plan foods. And then we have candy and soda and things that
Yeah.
my husband buys that are not tempting for me anymore. And I
Yeah.
think people need to know that there's hope there.
Yeah.
Even if you're addicted to sugar, you're not always going to feel like it's the biggest temptation. The longer you go without it, the easier it is to have that just not be part of what you eat every day. I think it's key to enjoy what you are eating. So finding those recipes that are on plan that you love is absolutely necessary. You have to look forward to something that you're
Yeah.
eating. We don't want to just be bored with our food because I think that leads to cheating sometimes. But um,
I love that, and that's why I asked the question is because I wanted people to hear, the listeners, that you don't have to wait for your family to be on board, because that may never happen.
Well, I got a comment and a question for you. My comment is yes, I experienced the same thing with my own family. My boys, not so much my girls. They kind of wanted to do the health thing. Um, could drive, they're like at the gas station or, finding their own foods. What, teenage boy foods, and I'm like, I didn't raise you like that. They're like, Mom, the trim healthy mama thing. But now that they're adults, and one slightly less than the other two, but he's coming around, they are like my son is a health coach. Like they come back. That scripture that said, raise a child in the way he should go. And yes, that's spiritual, but it's also physical. They will come back to it because they saw that it makes sense. And my growing, sons are very much coming back to the wisdom ways they even learned as a child and honoring it. So I would say, don't think that will always they'll be like, oh, gonna go get my Slurpee. I think there's a time of reckoning.
It's so interesting,
that's
just for a little
encouraging.
story. I know we're interviewing Jen and hearing all the great things she has to say, but it's just a funny little story. I raised my children on what I would call the brick bread, right? We call
Yeah.
it peasant bread. The recipe's out there, and they loved it growing up. It was just all they had. That was it. That's what the bread that was in the house. But they grew a bit older, and my dad had a ministry of getting old bread that was just like a day overdue and then giving it out to the homeless. So some of that bread would pass through the
Head.
hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my teenage boys would always end up going to granddad's before he passed it out to the poor and getting, this special bread. And it was like so wonderful. And they were like, I want the soft bread, Mom, the soft bread. But now they're married, they come back to my house and they want me to bake it for them. They're wanting, like, I'll pay you, Mum. I'll pay you to make your brick bread for me.
Well, that's so good. But Jennifer, can I ask you this then? You mentioned, and we've got to unpack that. Why did I say the word unpack? But we do.
Because
Okay.
it sounds so trendy.
You said you're living with members that are not necessarily all, on trim healthy, and you ask them rather than, hey, we're not having that in the house. It's too tempting for me. You said, I love this is I haven't heard it before. Hey, just would you, and you asked, you didn't demand. You just said, would you mind in my line of sight? Could I not have those? Then could you do a separate cupboard? Is that what you tell your clients, and does that go over well with their families?
I do because a lot of people, a lot of my clients have family members who are just unwilling to go
Yeah.
on plan and
Right.
they start to feel like that's the end. Well, if I'm the only one doing this, a lot of people think they have to make separate meals for Trim Healthy Mama, which is absolutely not true. I have never done that, and it's been so many years. And a lot of kids, I've never made duplicate meals or separate meals for on-plan people and off-plan people. And then they think, well, if this food's going to be around, first of all, they think I have to eat it or I can't say no. And that is absolutely not correct. You can always say no. You don't have to indulge in those things. But just getting it out of sight, it helps the family feel a little bit involved. And especially if you phrase it in a way that I would be so thankful if you could support me. I'm not asking you to do anything different for yourself. You can keep eating those things, but if you could support me by just moving it to a place where, we all have a field of vision of a certain number of shelves in the pantry or cabinets that are maybe open cabinets, asking people to get things out of your line of sight is really helpful. And then you put your trim healthy treats where you can see them. So if you're going into the pantry and you have a bin with, something you've made or something delicious that's on plan, you're more likely to grab that. It's right there staring you in the face instead of something that's off plan and not worth it.
Oh, this is so huge.
So great.
Oh my goodness. This is the first time I've actually heard that. And we've been trying to help people for years. And I've made suggestions to but I've always known that demanding doesn't work. Or hey, you
Yeah.
guys, I'm doing this. I'm trying to get healthy.
Then they really want you off the diet because you
Yeah.
sound like an ogre and a monster and they want you off of it.
That saying I'd be so thankful if
Yeah.
if and it's not removing them from the house. It's just helping you. I think this is
And
going
I
to be
think that's
so
just
huge.
beautiful and it's just respect.
Hmm.
I've been a little bit of a sergeant major when with my children where I feel like it's the age where I'm kind of training their taste buds, the younger children. But it's right. Once they're, like making their own decisions, they're in their teen years,
Yeah.
then that's when I feel like the respect.
Especially with husband
Yeah.
too.
Like, 'cause I don't ask my 3-year-old, would you
No.
like to put your cookies to the side and you can have as many cookies as you want? I'm like, give those cookies here. They're going away from you. But yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, you have brought so much today. Is there anything you want to say? We will link, where do people, before we talk about, and we'll have all where people can go to find all your amazing recipes, your coaching at your website. I even know it off my head. It's the Well Planned Kitchen, right? Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Kitchen's
I've
great.
used some of your recipes and they're incredible.
Thank you.
But I'm like, are there any words that you'd like to say with a woman maybe struggling right now, hearing your story where not with sugar addiction, I don't want you to go there because we already covered that. I want you to go to someone who's in a world of stress.
Yeah.
And maybe it's different stress to what you were going through, but if you could just like speak to them, because they may have abandoned their health journey, their cortisol may
And,
be
and maybe
high.
they
And
feel like health is the last thing they need to worry about right now because there's so many other important life or death situations, like I'm losing the house, I'm losing whatever. Like, but yeah, I feel
And
like,
maybe they're almost through it, and maybe they're where you were, broken and gained 40 pounds.
and then they think, well, I don't even need to worry about health now. I just need to celebrate.
There are a few things. I would say first, if you're a believer, you have to hold on to the promises that God has made, no matter what's going on, and trust. I think that's the biggest thing. And if anybody hears my story or even just the parts I shared today, I want them to know that God is always faithful, and that's the key theme through all of the things that I've gone through. I think for, when we're feeling discouraged and we don't feel like we're prioritizing our health, I've started to view it as I'm prioritizing the family that I love by taking care of myself. And it's not something that has to be difficult or complicated.
Mm.
I think that everyone needs the hope that you could have very little time. You can have 5 minutes to prep for the week and you can stay on plan.
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself is not just taking care of yourself right now. And the damage that I did to my body by not prioritizing anything with my health came into play years down the road. It wasn't an instant consequence for not taking care of myself. It came 3 years later or 2 years later when I wanted to be running around and playing with my kids and I couldn't because I had back problems and hip problems and all of the things that I probably could have avoided had I taken care of myself and not gotten into a place where I needed to undo some damage because I wasn't healing and I wasn't prioritizing my health at all. But I did it in a very simple, easy way. And you can stay 100% on plan by just if you can get a rotisserie chicken at the store, you can stay on plan. If you can get a bag of salad and toss the little packet of dressing that comes with it, but just grab the bag of salad with all the different veggies in it, you can stay on plan. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be time consuming. And it doesn't mean making three separate meals for all the taste buds in your house. You can make simple on plan meals that are delicious. Don't take much time, even at the last minute. And I think that that ability to stay on plan when things aren't perfect is what carries you through and gets you to greater health because you can't assume that you'll always have this perfect set of circumstances and it will always be easy to meal prep and stay on plan.
You're such an
And
inspiring
then,
advocate. Yeah, it's like, wow, it's just inspiring to hear you. It really is.
Yeah.
thank you. I just need people to know it's doable. No matter what's going on, it's doable and it can be simple.
And you're proof of that, right? You are proof. It's not like you're coming from this little perfect life and you're saying, you know what, even if you go through hard trials, you can do it. No, you are proof and you've walked through those hard trials and you've shown that you can prioritize health
Thank
during
you.
that.
Yes. And
Oh,
I was at one point working 3 jobs from home and trying to homeschool my kids and getting, all of these things going on, trying to support a family. And I was 100% on plan during that time. So even for myself, I look at it as if I could do it then, I could do it now. If I could do it then, I could do it when I blow a tire and I'm going to be an hour late getting home to start dinner. I can definitely do it then. So I use that reminder for myself. But I know everybody has tough circumstances they can look back at and say, well, if I was able to do it then, I can do it now.
So good. Thank you for sharing your story. And I know some parts of it were probably even hard to talk about, and you didn't even, as you said, share the worst. But thank you for doing this. I think it's going to inspire so many. And
inspired.
me too. Me too. And I
Thank you.
love that I love the way you look at the future now. I'm like,
Mm.
well, you're happy where you're at, and you're like, I kind of want to build more muscle. Yeah, that's
Because she's a
exciting.
contender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blessing to get to meet you guys in person and I'll spend this time with you today. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jen. Bye bye.